Equity Trust Company is a passive custodian and does not provide tax, legal, or investment advice. Any information communicated by Equity is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Whenever making an investment decision, please consult with your tax attorney or financial professional. Equity does not endorse any speaker or presenter before you today. The opinions or ideas expressed are not necessarily those of Equity Trust Company, nor do they reflect their views or endorsement. These materials are for informational purposes only. Furthermore, all case studies provided are for educational purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Because of the technical nature of the material and the fact that the laws and the markets are ever changing, we strongly recommend that you engage the assistance of a competent, qualified professional before implementing any ideas discussed today. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about the Roth IRA. Most of you likely have been to, who's been to one of my one-day classes or another seminar? Okay, just about everyone. Great. You've heard about a traditional IRA, RMDs, tax deductibility, et cetera, et cetera. We're way past that. I do want to make sure people understand the Roth IRA and the power of the Roth IRA. Jeff talked about that as the center of that nucleus, right? I want to introduce the solo 401k with the Roth component. I've had a couple of people that have already this weekend, before I've even spoken about this, come to the event prepared to establish a solo 401k with a Roth component. You're going to learn how you can get a lot more tax-free dollars into one of these small business solo 401ks in a very short period of time, providing that you qualify, providing that you have the necessary earned income. Roth conversion. I have tax deductible money I got a tax deduction for when I put it in through a 401k, 403b, 457 TSP plan, traditional IRA. The stock is about this big, and I think I'm going to grow it to this big, many rows across, and I don't want to pay the taxes. How do I do that? How do I get the taxes out of the way on the stock when it's this big so I don't have to pay when it's this big? We're going to talk about what that looks like. Inherited Roth IRAs. I mentioned yesterday someone coined the phrase, it's the unicorn of the tax qualified retirement account space. I would have to agree with that to many extents. The CESA account, Covered Education Savings Account, for those of you who aren't familiar. And then last but not least, the Health Savings Account, which I know Mr. Jeff is incredibly passionate about. And in his session between 4 and 5 in this room, he's going to talk in depth about taking an account like an HSA or a CESA account and through some creative wrap mortgages, being able to grow a small amount of money into a large sum tax-free in a very short period of time. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So we got that coming up in a few hours here. So let me go ahead and dive right into the content and material. I want everybody before to write 3 steps down for me. 3 steps. Step 1, and this comes from Jeff's presentation earlier today. Step 1, we have to teach you how to manufacture tax-free dollars. Step 1, manufacture tax-free dollars. How do you manufacture tax-free dollars? How do you manufacture tax-free dollars? Anyone? Contribute. You could contribute, make a contribution. If you have existing IRAs or 401ks, you can transfer or roll those over into a self-directed IRA, right? And then step 2, you want to write this down. Step 2 is put the tax-free dollars to use. And in this case, what we're doing is we're actually, in a way, taking substance, we're recycling it, and then we're remanufacturing it. It's the best way to describe it. So we manufacture the tax-free dollars. We put them to use. How do we put them to use? Invest. A variety of different strategies that could be deployed. We're going to be talking about a lot more of them. And our speakers that are coming in, client speakers, are going to be talking about some of those strategies. So we manufacture the tax-free dollars. We put them to use. And then step 3, this is an important one. You want to write this down. We're not going to dive deep into it in this presentation, but you're going to get a lot more of it through the next few hours, is creating a legacy. Creating a legacy. When I work one-on-one with investors, like Cliff, who talked earlier this morning, He mentioned we sat at a cocktail table on a memo pad for an hour in Cincinnati. We sketched out the vision. He took that vision to his attorney, who architected the transaction, and now he has over $70,000 in his covered education savings account. That's how it starts. That's creating a legacy for his children who aren't going to be burdened with all of this financial obligation into the beginning of their working years. What about a Roth IRA for a child? What about a Roth IRA for an in-law? What about a Roth IRA for a parent or grandparent and leave it to a grandchild tax-free? For those that were in the bonus session earlier yesterday, we talked about that. Tax-free income for your family, tax-free income for your children, your grandchildren, and many generations to come. So think about step 3, creating a legacy. By show of hands, who feels strongly that they're there? They're working and focusing on step 3 every single day. Okay. Fair enough to say 10% of the room? Okay. Who wants to be working on step 3? Right? What do we have to do before we get to step 3? Step 1 and 2, right? Okay, I know I'm asking simple questions here, but bear with me. Important we follow this 3-step process. Just think about that. Make it routine. And last but not least, before we wrap this session up, I'm going to have Scott, you're going to have to plow the road for him to come up here in about 30 minutes. He's going to share with you his experience with converting money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And he buys houses and sells those houses on seller financing. So he brings to the table some really practical knowledge about how this works, how it functions. So you saw this slide before, the Roth IRA as the nucleus. You know, and I'll say, Jeff Desich, when I was working with him, I had the traditional IRA as the nucleus, and I'm a little bit ashamed of that. I'm just being transparent and honest here. And he said, John, what are you thinking? You have the traditional IRA as the nucleus? Where does everybody want to be? They want to be in the Roth IRA. That doesn't mean that a traditional IRA is not a part of your constellation or a part of the arrows in your quiver, as Stan would say. But the Roth IRA, for me, and for a lot of the people that I work with, is really the center point. That's really the nucleus, the core nucleus to drive from. Personally, I mentioned yesterday, I put as much money into my Roth as I can every year. I'm fortunate to have a self-directed Roth IRA and self-directed Roth 401k. I try to make as many loans with that account as I possibly can because I am leveraging compounding interest in the absence of taxation. You could write that one down as well. Compounding interest in the absence of taxation. Jeff, in a couple hours, has these interesting formulas that he mapped out. And in every one of those formulas, where he talks about his Roth theorem, nowhere do you see a variable of taxation. Why? You put your money in after tax into a Roth, it grows tax-free, so as long as you're following the rules, it's seasoned for 5 years and you're 59 and a half, we're going to talk about that, it's tax-free. So when you start putting together transactions and looking at your return on investment, you get to strip out that variable of taxation. For some of you, it might only be a Roth IRA and that's it. For other people, it's a Roth IRA and their traditional IRA if they have tax-deductible money, a covered education savings account for maybe a child or multiple children or multiple grandchildren, solo 401k, spousal Roth IRA. Stan's going to be talking tomorrow. I don't even know how many accounts he has now. I want to say maybe 10 to 12 different self-directed accounts. Accounts for his 2 daughters, covered education savings accounts. He's done options with these accounts. He's taken these accounts from $500 to $1,000 and grown them to thousands of dollars and been able to pay for his children's college tuition, pay for their private school, all tax-free. So as you're working throughout the weekend and you're scratching things out on your pads of paper or on spreadsheets, be thinking about what is your nucleus here? What is your equation? What is your constellation? All right? And map that out. And then as we talked about earlier, meet with one of our senior account representatives here and talk about which plans make sense for you, which ones you're eligible for, which ones you can establish. Do you want to convert or not convert? Do you need to roll money over or transfer money? and we can help get you started with that. So that's the whole aspect of creating the tax-free dollars. We're going to talk a lot more about how we put those dollars to use. Now, before I go into some of the more finer details of these accounts so you can really understand the mechanics, I want to show you a case study and how powerful these constellations can be, these atom constellations can be. This is our investor of the year. His name's Brian. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it to this conference. We were going to have him at the conference. He wasn't able to make it, but he was willing to do a webinar with us. And we just recorded this webinar. It played live, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you want a link to this webinar, just see one of our folks at the registration desk and we can get you that webinar. Brian talks about how he did 2 transactions in 1 year in 2017 and made $130,000 tax-free in his Roth IRA, his wife's Roth IRA, and his 3 children's covered education savings accounts. He actually has 4 children and 4 CESAs, but on the deal he did, he only used 3 of the children's CESAs. And you're going to learn a little bit more about why he did that, his philosophy of that. And Brian became our investor of the year in 2017. For those of you who aren't familiar and you want to challenge yourself, every year we do an investor of the year contest. And we have nominations. Usually there's 100 to 200 of them. There could be more on an annual basis. And the winner every year gets a free IRA. For the marketing folks back there, correct me if I'm wrong. Otherwise, I'm just giving away free IRAs. Yeah, free. They said thumbs up. You get a free IRA for the rest of your life. So I'd encourage you, when you leave this conference, if you start getting very active, which we'd anticipate you do that, let us know, share your stories, and you may potentially never have to pay another annual maintenance fee. Again, the goal is everyone pays $2,000 a year. Your account's over $1 million. I'd also encourage you, right out these doors, we have a setup for testimonials. And you're going to see Heather over there who handles that for us. I'd encourage you to do some testimonials with us. Let us know your success stories so we can share those with other investors. That's how other investors learn this business. So at any rate, Brian, deal number 1. This was in Nashville, Tennessee. He partnered 3 covered education savings accounts to buy a vacant property, which was in we'll call it an up-and-coming area. And in the webinar, he describes this in more detail. There was a mobile home park that was purchased, and it was being renovated, so property values were increasing in that market substantially. He found a vacant lot. He got it under contract. He bought it for $8,000 using his 3 children's covered education savings accounts. CESA 1 put $4,000 into the deal. CESA 2 put $2,000. CESA 3 put $2,000. So proportionately, CESA 1 with $4,000 invested had how much equity? 50%. And then the other 2 CESAs had what percent? 25%. So on the contract, it read Equity Trust Company, Custodian, FBO, CESA number 1, undivided interest 50%, Equity Trust Company, Custodian, FBO, CESA number 2, undivided interest 25%, so on and so forth. Got the property under contract, $8,000, and he sold it 60 days. It was 60 to 90 days later. I think he got it under contract about 60. It closed at 90. $60,000 sale price. So we made approximately $52,000 tax-free in the 3 covered education savings accounts. So how did that $52,000 get split up when the wire came back to Equity Trust Company after settlement? 50, 25, 25, right. So $25,000 into CESA number 1, right? About $25,000 into CESA number 1. $25,000 tax-free, right? Right? 50%. What's 50% of 52,000? About, yeah, 25, 26,000. And then you have 25% of the remaining amount, right, into the other respective CESA accounts. Make sense? None of that income hits his 1040 as ordinary income, right? It's all tax-free in the covered education savings accounts. So now let's fast forward to deal number 2. Same scenario in the same area. He finds a double lot. There are actually 2 parcels. Originally, it was 1 parcel. It was split into 2 parcels. There was a dilapidated property, so it was a tear down. He bought the 2 lots, and then he subdivided those lots into 3 parcels. He sold it to a developer who subsequently built on the lots. He built these townhomes, and he bought it all in with the subdivision all-in costs for $120,000, combining his Roth, his wife's Roth, and the 3 covered education savings accounts. So 5 accounts involved in the deal. $120,000 all in, sold it for $200,000. So an $80,000 profit, all in between all of the 5 accounts, $130,000 tax-free in 1 year. So none of that income hits his ordinary income as ordinary income and taxed accordingly, right? CESAs and Roth IRAs, they're tax-free accounts. So this was, I think, an incredible transaction to demonstrate here, and you can plug and play. So you can look at, okay, maybe I could plug an HSA into that transaction. That's another arrow in the quiver. Maybe I can plug and play a grandchild CESA account. Or it could even be a solo 401k or a Roth with the Roth component, which we're going to talk about. So think about transactions like this. Think about, on a memo pad, scratching these types of visions out, and then you bring it to an attorney to architect the transaction. Now, I know some of you might be thinking to yourself, whoa, 5 IRAs on a purchase contract. Who's thinking that right now? Who's thinking about how the heck am I going to paper the deal? No one's thinking about that? Normally, people are always thinking about that. Normally, somebody raised their hand already and said, John, you can't do that transaction. It'd be too hard to do. That's why you bring that to people who specialize in the industry. So the vision, here's the plans, Mr. Attorney. Help me draft this. Help me paper the transaction. On a transaction where there's 5 IRAs, we're going to talk about, in the next session, possibly setting up or forming a trust. Right, Jeff? Personal property trust, forming an LLC, doing it properly, using a third-party manager who's a non-disqualified person, so you're not violating 4975C1C of the tax code. We're going to talk about papering the transactions a little bit more depth in the next session, okay? This is the vision. I want to show you how to manufacture the tax-free dollars, step 1 in this session. Step 2, putting those to use, is going to be the following sessions, okay? Make sense to everyone? All right, the Roth IRA. I meant to get the picture over at the office, but I failed to do so. This is William Roth, and he passed away in about 2003, but he was the senator in Delaware who was the legislative sponsor of the self-directed Roth, well, not the self-directed Roth IRA, but the Roth IRA in general. And that was in 1998. So IRAs and retirement plans really go back to 1974. In 1974, the Employee Retirement Income Securities Act was passed, and out of that act gave birth to IRAs, 401ks, kind of the retirement industry as we see today. Coincidentally, our company, as Jeff mentioned earlier today, was founded in 1974 as sort of a traditional stock brokerage house. And then we, at that point, moved into more active self-direction into real estate, more close to the early 80s when we got our IRS determination letter. So rewinding here, the Roth IRA didn't come about until 1998. Why is that important? That's important because when you ask the question, well, why don't more people have Roth IRAs, or there's more healthy funding in Roth IRAs? Well, it didn't come about until 1998. And then you're also going to learn that there's naysayers and there's people out there that are going to tell you that you can't have a Roth IRA, right? Who's ever been told they can't have a Roth IRA? Who's been told that it's not a wise decision to have a Roth IRA because you don't get a tax deduction? I love that one. That's my favorite one. My brother is a mathematical genius. He works in finance and accounting for a Fortune 500 company. Every single dinner table conversation is debating me on why the Roth IRA doesn't make sense. I said, talk to me when I'm 60 years old and I have X amount of tax-free dollars and I don't have to worry about paying tax on my Social Security income. I don't have to worry about how my traditional IRA distributions affect my ordinary income tax basis. Why? Because it's a Roth IRA and it never hits my ordinary income. Yes, Stan?
What is the book that you gave me to read that I have read? I need to give everybody that name. It's an audiobook as well. If you listen to that audiobook or read that book, you will be stunned.
We're on the same wavelength, Stan.
So what's the name?
The Power of Zero. The Power of Zero. Okay, I'm going to pass this book around for everyone. Yes, please give it back. I have another book I referenced yesterday. Somebody stole it in Milwaukee. Where are the Milwaukee folks? If you find the person that stole it, I'm asking for it back. Take a picture of it. Yes, please return it back. The Power of Zero is written by David McKnight. The whole concept and premise of the book is how to live in a 0% effective tax rate environment. Who wants to be in a 0% effective tax rate? All of us, right? We get very passionate about this. And what the book is talking about is how can we transition money from traditional IRAs and tax-deductible accounts into a Roth account so we don't have to pay taxes going forward. It talks about, as I was just mentioning, the impact on your Social Security income tax. A lot of people don't know about that or just don't consider it. And it breaks it down into very simple steps. It talks about the taxable bucket, the tax-deferred bucket, and the tax-free bucket. So you got your taxable bucket over here, paying ordinary income tax, capital gains tax, short-term, long-term, et cetera. You got your tax-deferred bucket, which are tax-deductible accounts, 401ks generally speaking, traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, and then you have your tax-free bucket, which is the Roth bucket. So just think of it that way. Taxable bucket, tax-deferred bucket, tax-free bucket. Thank you, Stan, for bringing that up and reminding me to pass that book around. So that's William Roth. Birthday is July 22nd. We do a celebration with him across the, well, not with him, in spirit with him, across the way. Just asked me, somebody asked me yesterday, they didn't believe me. I showed them a picture, William Roth. Yes, birthday celebration. We do cake and ice cream and things like that. We have a good time with it. Coincidentally, my father's birthday is July 22nd. So, you know, that's, some of you may have heard me talk about that before. 2018 contribution limit, so you want to write this one down, just the details, $6,500 when under the age of 50, $5,500 when under, when under the age of 50. So 50 and over, $6,500, and when under 50, $5,500. Okay, that's the maximum amount you can contribute out of pocket. Now that's irrespective of earnings, rollovers, and transfers. All right, so if you're Vina, who you're going to hear from tomorrow, who took a $500 Roth IRA and grew it to $30,000 in 1 year, she didn't exceed her contribution limit. That's earnings within the plan. It's no different than if you buy Microsoft stock for 3 cents and it goes up to $50. Make sense? Okay. Must be eligible for contributions. I'm going to show you what those eligibility requirements are in just a moment. Earnings potential is unlimited within account. Okay? Assuming all rules are followed. That's an important one. Got to follow the rules. Account must season for 5 years. Must season for 5 years. So the seasoning starts January 1 in the year in which that first dollar contribution has been made, or the year in which you convert money from a traditional to a Roth. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, 5-year seasoning period. What does that mean for everyone in this room? What that means for everyone in this room is if you already have a Roth and you've had it for many years, whether you had it with us or another company, doesn't make a difference, you're good. You're seasoned. So at any rate, I got another slide on that. We'll go back to that in a little bit. But circumstantially, personally, and working with thousands of people, I've never seen that actually come up. So it could come up, but I've never necessarily seen that come up. I'll hold questions for just a few minutes because I have some slides that I think I'm going to catch a lot of the questions on. So account must season for 5 years. Consider this as well, spousal contributions. So earned income must be obtained in order to make a contribution to an IRA. You have to have W-2 or 1099 income that you're paying ordinary income taxes on, so federal, state if applicable, local, and then your payroll taxes, your Social Security and Medicare. So that's the price to pay, so to speak, to get in the game. If you have a non-working spouse, your earned income could support their contribution. So you could contribute your $5,500 or $6,500 into the plan, and then they can put $5,500 or $6,500 into the plan. So you can create more tax-free dollars. That's the concept there with the spousal contribution. So eligibility requirements. You heard the first one, you got to have earned income. Eligibility requirement number 2 is that you are under the modified adjusted gross income limits. MAGI, for all intents and purposes, is your AGI. I don't want to make that statement as a hard and fast rule, just sort of a rule of thumb, okay? What your MAGI is basically your AGI, not taking into account foreign earned interest exclusions, student loan deductions, and there's a few others on there, okay? That's a CPA or tax accountant question. If you think you're getting close to that number, We're going to talk about and this is a unofficial strategy, I'll call it, called a backdoor Roth IRA. Is anyone familiar with a backdoor Roth IRA? Okay, we'll talk about that. So if you make too much money, there are still techniques you can use to get money into a Roth IRA. Parameter number one is that you got to have earned income. So what are the MAGI limits? If you are single and you make under $120,000, you don't have to worry about it. You can make a full contribution to the Roth IRA, $5,500 or $6,500, whether you're under or over 50. If you make between 120 and 135, they call this the phase-out range. You can only contribute a little bit to the Roth IRA. Phasing out meaning as you get closer to this 135, you can only put a small sliver into the account. So what most people do is what we're going to talk about in a second. If you're over 135, can't contribute at all. Married filing jointly, under 189, you're good. You can make a full contribution. 189 to 199, you can only do a partial contribution. 199 and over, you can't contribute at all. Okay? Get the gist of that? Make sense? Okay. So that takes us to a Roth conversion in what I was talking about, the backdoor Roth IRA. All right? So if you are over these MAGI limits, you make too much money, then what you can consider doing is contributing first to a traditional IRA. Traditional IRA contributions have no MAGI limits. Contribute to a traditional IRA. Initially, you recognize a deduction when you file your return. For some people, they actually have to contribute through what they call a non-deductible contribution, file an 8606. Ultimately, we're not going to get into a tax discussion here. This is where your tax accountant or CPA is going to paper your returns properly, right? Like I said before, you go to an attorney to actually create the blueprints. You're just the visionary. So you contribute first to the traditional IRA. That's stop number one. Consider it a layover. And then you immediately convert it to a Roth IRA. Immediately do a Roth IRA. I have clients that have been doing this since 2010. See, prior to 2010, you couldn't do this. Prior to 2010, if you made over $100,000 MAGI, you couldn't convert from a traditional to a Roth IRA. The Bush administration signed this into law in 2007, I believe. 2006, 2007, and it's indefinitely. They could retract, right? But as of right now, we're taking advantage of it. So $5,500, $6,500 into the traditional IRA, immediately converted over to a Roth IRA. And unofficially, it's called a backdoor Roth IRA. I'll take a quick question over here. Yes, sir.
How long does it have to sit in the first IRA?
We do it in 3 business days. There's no requirements. You could do it instantaneously if you wanted to. What you have to be careful about with bank accounts is there's interest income that could potentially be obtained in that 1 business day. So that's why it's important you're working with a custodian that's doing it almost instantaneously. So you don't have any, obviously 3 to 4 cents isn't going to make a big difference, but it's still something important to look out for. Yes, sir, right behind.
All right. What if most of your income is already tax-free?
That being like passive income from rents?
No. From the state of California.
If your income is tax-free already, I would say then I guess a self-directed Roth IRA may be of no use to you. So, yeah, I don't know that I can answer that question directly. But relatively speaking, for those that know that they're going to have earned income, they're going to have capital gains income, et cetera, they can shelter their investments in a Roth IRA. Yes, Dan?
So the term backdoor IRA, I had a discussion with a guy the other day whose brother-in-law is a big UBS broker, and when I'm talking to him about Roth IRAs, I thought it was crazy. That is a standard term for that procedure. People, I think, get frightened to think that this is a 2-step process. It's used every day. You'll read the term backdoor IRA in Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and so forth. It's not a scheme. It is a legitimate technique. Government permits it because they're going to get the tax money on what you're putting away.
Yep.
And that's why they. But I've talked to a lot of people that aren't familiar with IRA terminology, and the term backdoor seems to make them nervous. But it's a standard procedure.
Awesome.
If the government's allowing that, why don't they just change it and let you go straight into a Roth? I mean, are they going to do that eventually?
They could, but as of right now, that's kind of the rules. That's the rules. So because I don't want to run short on time, I'm going to plow through some more content. Okay, guys? All right, so here we go. Converting a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Pre-tax money to a Roth IRA, paying the taxes now opposed to later following 59.5. That's the definition of a Roth conversion. Taxes can be paid through withholding money or out of pocket. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is instead of taking the tax-free dollars out to pay for the taxes, preserve the tax-free dollars, because those William Roths create juniors and seconds and thirds and fourths and so on and so forth, right? So you want to preserve those tax-free dollars so you can pay the taxes out of pocket. Traditional IRA, SEP IRA, simple IRA, or other tax-deductible account can be eligible to convert to a Roth IRA. So some of you might actually backdoor your way into a Roth IRA through a SEP IRA contribution, which you can contribute substantially more if you have enough active earned income through a business. So if you're paying yourself $100,000, you could conceivably put 20% of that, $20,000, into a SEP IRA and then immediately convert it to a Roth IRA. Not going to go into detail there, okay, because we're going to be short on time, but just consider that. I'm peppering that in right now. You can have those individual conversations to talk about how to backdoor your way into more Roth IRA money. Full transfer or partial transfer, so you can do a partial conversion or a full conversion. And you can convert as many times throughout the year as needed. That being said, the law did change recently. You used to be able to do what they call a recharacterization. After this year, you're not going to be able to do a recharacterization. So I'm not going to go into detail there. Just know that once you convert, you've converted. So you got to make the right financial decision and execute with precision. Roth conversion. Here's the example. I take $100,000 and put it into a Roth IRA. So I got $100,000 in a traditional IRA. I convert it to a Roth IRA. Let's assume a 20% effective tax rate. I pay $20,000 in taxes. Simple as that. It's that $100,000 gets added to my ordinary income. Let me show you a partial conversion. So you might say the tax burden is going to be too great in 1 year. Let me spread out my tax burden. I take $100,000, put $50,000 in year 1, 20% effective tax rate. That's a hypothetical tax rate. $10,000 in taxes paid. Now I got $50,000 to work with tax-free. You might also do it deal specific. So I know there's some investors out there that are doing small dollar deals where they're putting an option on a property, and maybe their option fee is only $1,000, and then they're selling the option to an investor buyer. So they're flipping the contract, and they're making $5,000 to $10,000 in an assignment fee. That's what Cliff was doing, who talked earlier, grow his CESA account to $70,000 or his kid's CESA account to $70,000. He was doing transactions like that. So I might convert $1,000, pay taxes on $1,000 so I don't have to pay it on 10, right? The philosophy is, would you rather pay taxes on 1,000 or 10,000, right? Rather pay it on the 1,000. So you can consider that as well. For those of you that have only a traditional IRA right now, it's very simple. Maybe it's only $1,000. You could simply say equity trust, take this $1,000 and convert it over to the Roth IRA. We do the informational tax reporting. You get a copy. The IRS gets a copy. You give it to your tax accountant or CPA, or if you do your taxes on your own, you take that document and you key in the amount that you're converting and you pay the taxes accordingly. It's as simple as that. I should also mention that you can convert assets in kind. That question came up last night. So if you have a property, you would get a valuation via broker price opinion, or just have a broker fill out a fair market valuation form, work with our team on that, and you can convert that asset over in kind. If you have a note secured by real estate in your IRA, you would convert that at what value? Face value, unpaid balance. So you could easily convert a note as well. Inherited Roth IRA, we were talking about this before. Roth IRA can be left to your beneficiaries tax exempt, tax-free. This is important. Non-spousal beneficiaries are required to take required minimum distributions. This is what Bob was talking about. Okay? So when you leave your Roth IRA to a child or grandchild to a non-spousal beneficiary, which you're allowed to do, they don't pay tax, but they are required to take some money out every year based on their life expectancy rate. If I inherited a grandfather or a father's Roth IRA today, in my mid-30s, it's only, I did the calculation, it's only, I want to say, maybe 2.6% of the principal balance. That's all I got to take out. And the reason why I say this is because I've had people that have come to me before and they say, and I'm not going to do the way Jeff says it. You'll hear it from him later. They'll say, well, John, this isn't going to work for me because I get this inherited Roth IRA and I want to invest in real estate and I don't want to be forced to sell the property. You should be making enough cash flow on the deal, right, to satisfy those required minimum distributions. So it's really a non-relevant issue, but it is something that as you get older and older, you have to take more and more out of the account. Non-spousal beneficiaries can take tax-free distributions before 59.5 and can continue to grow the Roth IRA. This is very, very powerful. So consider this. I'll use Stan for an example. Stan, let's say, has a Roth IRA for an in-law, okay, a mother-in-law or father-in-law. He has 2 daughters that are in their early 20s, right? Early 20s. Grandpa or grandma passes away with a Roth IRA with $100,000, leaves it to the grandchildren. They're in their mid-20s. That's tax-free income for them. They can do one of 2 things, the responsible thing or the irresponsible thing. Irresponsible, I would say, would be just take it all out tax-free. The responsible thing, with the help of their father, most likely, would be continue to invest the money, grow it tax-free, and create a tax-free income stream even though they're well under the age of 59.5. Is that powerful? It's extremely powerful. Potential tax-exempt cash flow. If you can invest in cash flowing assets in that account, then you could produce tax-free income even well under the age of 59.5. My Roth IRA, if I die today, my Roth IRA goes to my significant other. She's well under 59.5. She doesn't pay a single dime in tax. She can continue to invest it and take the money out tax-free even though she's under 59.5. I consider it an extra insurance policy for me.
Hey, John, just a quick one. If I leave my Roth to my son and he takes it, just like you described it, but then he dies and leaves it to his son, what happens?
So with a Roth IRA on the next generation, it becomes fully distributed. Not tax. It's not taxed, but it becomes fully distributed.
So the
Okay.
would have to take the whole thing, right?
That's correct. So you can't create Rockefeller Roth IRAs. Traditional IRAs operate a little bit differently. So you bring up a great point because if your son or daughter doesn't need the money, pass it on to the grandchildren.
Can they bypass themselves and pass it on to him?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. They can defer it to the grandchildren or to their children. Yep. You got it. All right. So moving on. Solo 401k with the Roth component. Very, very important. If you, like Jeff talked about before, have a business and you have earned income defined as income that you are paying federal, state, local income taxes on, state if applicable, and payroll, Medicare and Social Security tax. If you have earned income through that business, you're paying yourself earned income, and you don't have any employees, you qualify for a solo 401k. Bob had mentioned one time at a seminar that I heard him speaking at that this is a far superior plan to any small business retirement account. I'm quoting him, so it doesn't come from me, okay? I'm not saying it's a far superior plan. I'm just saying that's what some people think, right? So, solo 401k with a Roth component. Think of it this way. You got 2 buckets, tax-deductible bucket and tax-free Roth bucket. Self-employed, no employees. Self-employed, no employees, you have to have earned income through that business. Here are the contribution limits. $18,500 when under the age of 50, when 50 and over, $24,500. That's as an employee. If you're paying yourself $18,500, you could put $18,500 into the plan. If you're 50 and over, you're paying yourself $24,500, you could put $24,500 into the plan. Now, you can elect to put the $18,500 or the $24,500 into a tax-deductible bucket, like a traditional 401k that a lot of people are accustomed to, and get a deduction. Or you can defer it into a Roth bucket. So you don't get a deduction for the $18,500 or the $24,500, but that money is going to grow tax-free for the rest of your life. Make sense? Employer deferral. I don't see this always taken advantage of, but it can be. So you as an employer and an employee, as an employer, you can defer up to 20% of your self-employment income or 25% of your W-2 income. That is $36,500. So if you're paying yourself substantially high amounts, you could potentially get up to $55,000 or $61,000 into this solo 401k and have your 18.5 or 24.5 into the Roth component. I'm going to hold questions because I'll be short on time. I want to make sure I get through all the content. HSA plan for definition purposes. So if you have a high deductible healthcare plan, you qualify for an HSA. You can make contributions tax deductible. You could grow it tax-free, take the money out, use it for medical-related expenses tax-free. Again, Jeff is going to talk more about this in a few hours. But if you want to write down the contribution limits, they are as follows. If you're a single policy holder and you're under 55, you can contribute $3,450 and get a tax deduction for it, and then it grows tax-free and you take it out tax-free. It's the only plan that offers the tax deduction, the tax-free growth, and the tax-free distributions. 55 and over, $4,450. For a family policy, you'll see under 55, $6,900, 55 and over, $7,900. Okay? Again, we will be talking more about leveraging the HSA through different transactions in the additional sessions ongoing. Covered education savings account, $2,000 per year per beneficiary, that being per child. The money that goes in, you don't get a tax deduction for. It grows tax-free. You take it out and use it for qualified educational expenses, K through 12 or higher education. It's not taxable. Okay? Stan will talk more about that, I know, tomorrow morning. All right? He's leveraged his two children's covered education savings account for a number of transactions. In fact, on one transaction, I know he had about 10 accounts involved in one transaction where he made a loan to a mobile home park operator on an equity participation basis. So he had 10 IRAs and CESA accounts involved in the deal, and each one had a percentage of the deal, and each one received a percentage of the return on investment. Account must be used by the age of 30. If not used by the age of 30, it becomes forced distributed. Okay? Becomes forced distributed. You can transfer it to other children within the family, assuming they have a CESA already set up prior to the age of 18. That's important. You got to make sure all the kids have them before the age of 18 if you want to transfer them to and from. And again, consider it like a Roth account. Money goes in, you don't get a deduction, it grows tax-free. So that's the CESA account. I mentioned Brian before. Remember that case study? Remember that case study combining multiple CESA accounts? So next steps, and then Scott, if you could work your way up here. And I'm just going to be bold and say I'm going to go at least 5 minutes over. I know we got a 15-minute break, so we're going to get a 10-minute break, and then everybody's going to come back. Is this good stuff, though? You guys like this? Are you okay with me going over 5 minutes? Yeah. All right. If anyone's ever heard me speak before, you'll know I'm notorious for that. Select account types and open and fund an account, okay? That's step one. I talked about manufacturing tax-free dollars. Sit down with us. We can talk about the Roth conversion, complete all the paperwork needed, etc. Step two, you fund your account through a contribution, rollover, transfer, etc. We'll help you with that process. Don't feel like it's all up to you to try to figure out how to get the money from your other IRAs and 401ks and give them over to us. We'll help you with that process. That's one of the things we specialize in. Are you guys able, I know it's packed, but are you guys able to pass out the paperwork, the applications for anyone that needs one? Okay. Yeah, try to pass those out for anyone that would like an application. We will pass those out to you. You can fill those out as we progress throughout the weekend. And you can come to the tables over near the pool area, and we can help complete everything for you. Okay, so we'll complete everything for you together, and we will scan in all of the documents into our system, and then you can take the original documents home with you. So that way all of your confidential information is with you and not with us. We have that electronically archived, and for those of you that went on the tour with us, that goes directly to where? The basement, yeah, the X-ray room, right? So fund your account. Step three is direct your investment, okay? And then, and I'm going to lift this, Jeff left the room, rinse and repeat. So he's going to talk about this rinse and repeat model. Place an investment, return on investment, rinse and repeat, etc. Remember the nucleus as you start mapping out what tax-free dollars or how you're going to create more tax-free dollars, okay? And then last but not least, Scott, let me give you a microphone here. And if you could join me up here. Might be better if, Scott, you could come over here. And you could sit down if you want to. OK? What I'm going to do is give you the controls here to talk through your transactions. I also want to mention for everyone, if you are establishing and funding an account this weekend, even if you do a minimum contribution of $500 just to get the account up and running, your $50 setup fee is waived courtesy of Equity Trust in this event. Okay, so you invested time and energy to come to the event. If you want to open a covered education savings account or a solo 401k or an HSA, we also have the paperwork on site for that. So just let them know and they'll help you with that process. So that being said, I'm going to let Scott take over. Scott, let me give you this. So I met Scott maybe 6, 7 years ago, had 401k for him and his wife, rolled it over into a traditional IRA, and then he subsequently converted, I think it was a portion, into a Roth IRA, but he's going to talk about that. And he has done many different transactions. He does a lot of private lending with his self-directed accounts, but he's also done some seller finance transactions. So Scott, I'll let you take it away, maybe starting off by talking a little bit about the Roth conversion.
Okay, thank you. John, can everybody hear me okay? Good. First off, I'd like to thank John for all the help he's done for me over the years. He's been a tremendous help in getting me to where I am, so that's a good thing with Equity Trust. A little bit about, let me see what we got on the first slide here. Okay. What I did was, a few years back, I sat down with my CPA, and he talked about converting some of my traditional IRA to a Roth IRA based on that tax year. And what I did was I set up 3 accounts. I set up an account for $9,999. I set up an account for $15,000. And I set up an account with $25,000. Because he didn't know until after we did my taxes how much he would be able to. He wasn't sure until we did my taxes how much we would be able to transfer over to a Roth IRA and me be able to take a tax advantage of it. So that's why we set up the 3 different accounts, because at that point we could recharacterize it. In other words, if it all didn't work out for me to shift it over to the Roth IRA, we could switch it back to the traditional IRA. So that's why I set it up with 3 different accounts based on how much he'd be able to save me tax-wise. Luckily enough, he was able to find enough deductions and everything where I was able to transfer the whole, it worked out to be $49,999. So I put all that into one Roth. I consolidated all to one Roth account, and that was through the help of John and through my CPA that I got through that. So a little bit I'm going to talk about. I'm actually going to stand up if that's okay. And move over to this side. This is a deal that we recently did. Well, we did a couple years ago in the city of Rochester, New York. If you're not familiar with it, it's between Buffalo and Syracuse. And I keep telling people we compete with Buffalo and Syracuse to see who gets the most snow. We hope we lose every year because we average about 120 inches of snow a year up there. So yeah. So when I talk to people like from California and Florida and stuff like that, that's a lot of snow. But we like Rochester, we like the market because it's a steady market. We don't see the big increases and decreases that they do maybe in California and Florida. It's a nice steady market. I'm going to compare it to Cleveland. You can find houses in Rochester for $35,000, $50,000. They make decent rentals, or you can take them and fix them up and resell them. But this is a house I had that we did on Morton Street. We purchased it February 2013 for $35,000. We put $2,100 into repair into it. Now remember, I used my IRA to pay for all the repairs. So I had contractors come in and do the work, and when they had to be paid, I just ordered checks. Or they would give me an estimate up front, and I'd order the check, and then they could start the work. So my IRA paid for everything. We acquired this property, as it says up there. Mother had passed away. They moved the father into a nursing home, and the family was a little bit scattered. And the son, who lived in California, he really didn't want anything to do with the house. The house was actually left fully furnished too. I told them, you can come back and take any belongings you want out of there, and then we'll take care of the rest. So, and we're on the next slide here. Just some pictures of the property. Like I said, it was in decent shape. Nice garage out back. The windows were already like that with the glass block windows in the basement. We did have to have the basement painted. Some of the furniture in there, that's a single bed that was in there. Another double bed. Nice dining room set that was in there. All the appliances were in there. They recently updated the kitchen, the parents did, so the kitchen was really nice with new appliances too. Let's see. We put the house on the market for $59,900. You can read through here. We sold this house really quickly. We did offer owner financing with approved credit and a down payment. That's sort of the ad I ran on this. Pretty simple. We sold this house for $58,900. Let's see. We sold it. We purchased it in February 2013 for $35,000 as repairs, $2,100. We sold it in May for $58,900, and we offered it. They gave us $5,000 down. We carried back the note, $53,900, financing it at 10% interest over 10 years. The owners of the property, they've been steady payers. They pay on time. And in New York, I don't know if it's the same every place else, it takes about 2 months to close on a property from the time you purchase it, or from the time you put in the offer to the time that you close on it. It takes about 2 months. And then when you go to sell the property, it's the same thing. Between lawyers and surveys and title search, it takes about 2 months again. So this actually is a pretty quick turnaround for us. You can see the payments that they've been making on time. Let's see. The payments that they make per month, $712.29. We are broke down with principal and interest and ending balance. What we do, we get a check from them every month. I actually have the check sent to me. You can have the check sent to Equity Trust if you want to do it that way. But I have them send me the check. That way there's no like lost check or it's in the mail or anything like that. If I don't get the check on time, I know something's going on. Then what I do is I take the check, I'll make a deposit coupon with it. If anybody in here has ever done the deposit coupons, in the bottom of the deposit coupon, there is principal, how much of the payment is principal, how much is interest, and then if there's other on there, I actually escrow the taxes and insurance on this property for the people. So I have to put in the other block, I put in the amount of escrow that I'm holding for them, and at the bottom of that payment coupon is what the balance is, what the principal balance is, which I have right on the amortization schedule. So, okay. So to break it down, here's total investment, $375,000, sold it for $58,900. They gave me a down payment of $5,000. That's how much interest I accrued. Annualized return, they pay it off early if it goes to full maturity.
So real quick, if I could jump in, Scott.
Thanks,
and
John.
We're short on time, but I want to mention, what's the unpaid balance on this loan right now? The last time I updated it was about a month and a half ago when we spoke at the Rochester event, maybe 2 months ago. But what would you say the unpaid balance is right now? I think we can go back to it here. What do we got? 34,379. So it's got a UPB of 34,379.45. It has 10% yield on it right now, right?
Yep.
I would be interested in a cash flowing investment for 10%.
Oh, yeah.
So what I might say is, hey, Scott, and again, this is just hypothetically, right?
Yep.
I might say, hey, Scott, would you take $30,000 for the loan?
Nah, not 30. I'll take 31.
31. Okay. So I'm going to execute on a mortgage purchase and sale agreement. I'm going to buy the seller finance note from Scott's IRA. So my IRA is going to receive a mortgage assignment and it'll launch to the note. My Roth IRA, let's say, now bought that for $31,000. That's going to take my yield from 10% to what? What do you think? Maybe 12? Maybe 12%?
Yeah.
So now I'm getting 12% on my $31,000 investment. So now that check for $712.29 or whatever it was is going directly into my Roth IRA. So that's just an example of purchasing the existing seller finance note. That's something that Eddie Speed is going to talk a little bit about more tomorrow, structuring those types of transactions. So, Scott, back to you.
Okay.
I'll fast forward through this for you.
Great. Thanks.
Alexander.
Okay. This is another property. It's in Alexander, New York. I purchased it at a state auction for $38,500. What I did with this one is I did a 50-50 split between my IRA and my wife's IRA. So we both own 50% of it. So 50% of the purchase price had to come from my IRA, and then the other 50 from my wife's. The repairs that we did on this were pretty minimal. I did about $2,100 in repairs on this property. Once again, half of that money came from my IRA, the other half came from my wife's IRA. We fixed the property up. We sold it for $49,900. The person buying it, she owned her own business, so she didn't have the best credit, but she had pretty good credit. She gave me $10,000 down on the property, carried back a note, 10% interest, 10 years. What we actually did is when I get the monthly payment, I have to fill out 2 deposit coupons, one for my wife's IRA and one for my IRA. And same thing, just at the bottom, principal, interest, and then the remaining balance on it. What we did when we sold it was with a $10,000 deposit that she gave us, or down payment, we put $5,000 into my account, we put $5,000 into my wife's account. Okay, monthly payments here. So once again, she actually, she pays extra towards principal. So I have to remember that every month when I fill out the deposit coupon, what her ending balance is on that account. I have to add in the extra principal that she pays. Once again with her too, I collect the taxes and insurance, I escrow that for her too. So that's it.
That's
so
it.
Anybody have any questions on that? I know I went through that pretty quick. Yes.
When you say you have escrow, you actually then it goes into your IRA and you pay that for her out of that IRA?
Yes. Yeah. What I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so the question was, is the escrowing of the taxes and insurance, the escrow of the taxes and insurance, is Scott then paying that? And the way Scott does that is he does a bill pay from that note investment. So he simply goes into his Equity Trust My Equity portal and says, Equity Trust, make a check payable to this county tax assessor, to this insurance company, and we process the payment. And you may need to do that if you have notes in your IRA. Maybe you have a filing fee, mortgage recording fee. Let's say it's $28 made payable to the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Office. You would hit bill pay through the My Equity system, and that check could get sent out. As of recently, we also have the capability, functionality to do an ACH direct deposit. So if the county tax assessor was able to supply an account number and routing number for credit to, he could also send a direct deposit or for insurance. So that's how that process works.
Right. Yes, back there.
Would you have a servicing company take care of that paperwork, deposit slips and all that?
I could. I'll let John explain how that works. I've heard of servicing companies doing that, and that's something I might look towards with more mortgages, but John, go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, and obviously, and this would be, Jeff, I'm sure, could address this question regarding consumer laws and reporting to the credit bureaus and things of that nature. But in this circumstance, it's just demonstrating using an IRA on a one-off transaction. So I can't necessarily speak to using a loan servicing company. We do see a lot of clients buy notes and use loan servicing companies. So by all means, that can be done, but it's not an absolute requirement. So that being said, we have about 5 minutes until the next session starts. So what I'm going to do is have everybody give Scott a big round of applause, and thank you very much.